But an unexpected death is one where you look round and you go, there's no good reason why this person should have died at this time, and so we need to...
For years, the truth about that tragic night in Paris stayed buried. But now, there's a new finding that changes everything. The head of police has finally come forward with a shocking confession. That night in Paris wasn't just an accident, he said. Diana's final moments were not what the public had believed. Behind the crash was a trail of decisions, some made in fear, others in power. Every choice made that night is now being questioned. What happened inside the Alma tunnel was never meant to happen. And now, the real story is only just beginning to unfold. The inquest that held the world's attention. The Alma tunnel in Paris still haunts people, even after all these years. That place brings back pain, one mourner once said. It was there under the dark streets of the city that Princess Diana and Dodi Al-Fayed lost their lives. The crash was sudden. The news spread fast. Diana is gone, the headlines read. Crowds gathered across the world. Cameras flashed. People cried in shock. The broken Mercedes became a symbol of sorrow. How could this happen? Voices echoed through London, Paris, and beyond. It wasn't just a royal tragedy, it felt personal for many. The whole world was grieving, one man said. Diana's funeral was watched by millions. The streets were packed, flowers covered every wall. We loved her, a woman whispered near Buckingham Palace. That day didn't pass easily. People held their breath, and the pain stayed. It didn't go away with time. It still hurts, others admitted, even years later. 10 years passed before a British inquest began. Many had waited for the truth. We need answers, families said. The goal was to finally understand what really happened. It was set to last 6 months and cost millions. But to many, the money didn't matter. Just tell us the truth, people begged. The coroner in charge, determined to be open, chose to show new footage from Diana's final night. No one had seen these clips before. Piece by piece, the last hours of Diana's life were laid out. One detail stood out. They held hands, someone noted. Diana and Dodi were seen holding hands for nearly 8 minutes, no words, just feeling. That said everything, the coroner remarked. There was also a short video of Diana smiling. That smile, caught forever, became hard to look at. She looked happy, like nothing was wrong, one viewer said. That made the tragedy even harder to bear. The jury had to look into 20 points. We had to go deep, one member explained later. They were told to examine the role of the paparazzi and Henri Paul, the man who drove the car. There were letters from Prince William, Prince Harry, and Prince Philip. Please don't rush, one letter read. The royal family wanted the inquest to dig for the full truth. People didn't want quick answers. We waited 10 years, a woman said. We can wait a little more, if it means finding out what really happened. 2 years after the crash, French judge Hervé Stéphane gave his findings. He said Henri Paul was drunk. He shouldn't have been driving, the report said, but doubts remained. In Britain, things were slower. The first coroner passed away before he could begin the inquest. The second handed the case to Lord Stevens, Britain's top police officer. Stevens led a new investigation and finished with a report. No signs of a plan, his findings said, no proof of conspiracy. Still, that coroner stepped down not long after. Next came Lady Butler Sloss. She was smart, but people didn't trust her, one critic claimed. Some said she lacked experience, others feared she would keep the hearings hidden. That idea caused a storm. It must be public, voices demanded. Finally, the Court of Appeal said there must be a jury. After that ruling, Butler Sloss quit. She couldn't carry on under those rules, the news reported. Then came Lord Justice Scott Baker, the fourth coroner. In 2007, he opened the inquest. British law required it since the crash happened abroad. He began with choosing a jury. Around 80 people were called. It was serious, one juror remembered. They were asked about any ties to the royal family, the Al-Fayeds, or British intelligence. Everything had to be fair, the court insisted. In the end, only 25 were chosen. The rest were let go. Some had strong views, others had personal links. As the inquest began, the weight in the room grew heavier. This matters to the world, the coroner reminded them, but he asked them to focus. Stick to the facts, he said. The jury was told to block out outside noise. From day one, they faced hard questions. Footage from the Ritz Hotel became key. The cameras showed Diana and Dodi walking through the halls. They didn't seem worried. They looked peaceful, a worker recalled. They rode the elevator, then slipped out the back. Nothing in their faces showed fear. Henri Paul's condition became a big point. The French report said his blood alcohol was way over the legal limit, but footage showed something strange. He walked without trouble. He bent to tie his shoes. He looked fine, viewers said. That didn't match the tests. Doubt started to grow. Maybe the tests were wrong, some wondered. The coroner reminded everyone to be careful. Check if anything was changed, he said. We must be sure. The jury was also asked to think about Diana's fears. Had she felt unsafe before the crash? Did she suspect something? Mohammed Al-Fayed, Dodi's father, said the crash was no accident. It was planned, he cried. That shocked people, but his words made many push harder for answers. Each part of the case was looked at slowly. Nothing could be skipped, the coroner warned. The inquest wasn't just about facts. It was about trust, it was about fear, and above all, it was about grief. Diana's loss wasn't just royal, it was personal. She was like family to us, someone said. This inquest was more than a courtroom event. It was a journey through memories, tears, and truth. It asked hard questions. Could someone have stopped this? Some still wonder. It looked into every shadow. The lives lost in that tunnel mattered. To millions, they still do. The inquest became a way to honor them. We just want to know, a man said outside the courthouse. We just want the truth. And that truth, even now, continues to matter. The night before the crash. Back in 1995, Princess Diana shared something very serious with her lawyer, Lord Mishkan. I don't feel safe, she told him. She asked for better protection for her car. She wanted more security around her. These fears were not just passing thoughts. Something doesn't feel right, she added. But Mishkan didn't believe her fully. He couldn't understand why she felt that way. She was scared, but I didn't know what to do, he later admitted. It was a strange moment. Still, Mishkan reached out to Commander Jeffson. He wanted a second opinion. To his surprise, Jeffson said, I believe her, at least partly. That one sentence stayed in Mishkan's mind. It showed Diana was not just imagining things, she looked steady. She didn't seem lost or confused. She was very focused, one aide recalled. Even though people whispered about her mental health, Diana never broke down. When the media called her unstable, she smiled and moved forward. At a charity lunch, she joked about the gossip. Let them talk, she said lightly. People around her laughed. They didn't see someone falling apart, they saw someone holding on. She was trying her best, one staff member said. Diana's team knew the truth. They saw her pain from a broken marriage. They saw her fight to stay strong under the pressure. She didn't give up, her close friend once stated. By July 1997, Diana had walked away from royal life. She felt free at last. Mohammed Al-Fayed invited her to Saint-Tropez. She went there with her sons. It felt like a new beginning, one observer noted. During that trip, she grew close to Dodi Al-Fayed. What started as friendship slowly turned into something more. Diana looked happy again. She smiled like she hadn't in years, a tourist remembered. Later, she went back alone to join Dodi and his family on their yacht, the Junicle. Cameras showed them laughing and enjoying themselves. But there were moments she asked to be left alone. She wanted space, one crew member said. On Saturday, August 30th, Diana, Dodi, and bodyguard Trevor Rees Jones stepped off the yacht. They flew from Olbia Airport to Paris. Photographers were already waiting. They knew she was coming, someone said. Among them was a man named Fabrice Chassery. That day, all the key people were finally in one place: Diana, Dodi, Trevor, and Henri Paul. It was the first time they were all together. Henri Paul was the deputy head of security at the Ritz Hotel. He became a central figure in what followed. He wasn't just hotel staff. He had links to French intelligence. That raised questions, reporters claimed. Some people wondered if British or foreign intelligence was involved, but Paul's close friends said he wasn't a spy. He did share some hotel info with French Secret Services, but nothing more. He helped every now and then, a former agent said. British MI6 files were checked. No signs of a plan were found. But the questions didn't stop. Paul spent much of that day close to Diana and Dodi. He even took them to the Villa Windsor, which the Al-Fayeds owned. Diana's visit there wasn't random. She knew it would make people in the royal family uncomfortable. Later, Diana and Dodi returned to the Ritz Hotel. That evening was captured on camera. They entered the Grand Imperial Suite. Not long after, Dodi left to buy a ring. He wanted something special, the jeweler said. He showed Diana a brochure. Then he told a hotel manager to pick up the ring. It was from a collection called Dis-moi oui, which means say yes to me. The ring was locked in the hotel safe. People believed an engagement was coming up, but no one truly knew. As the night moved on, they planned to visit another place. But when they saw photographers waiting, they turned back. The pressure was growing. Paul was called back to the hotel even though his shift had ended. When he walked in, security footage showed him looking sharp and sure. But something felt off. Paul had disappeared for almost 3 hours before returning. No one could say where he went. That gap raised new doubts, the coroner said. Investigators tried to piece it together, but struggled. At around 10 o'clock, Dodi canceled their dinner at a high-end restaurant. Paparazzi had gathered. It's too risky, he said. So they stayed and ate at the Ritz instead. Cameras showed Diana and Dodi growing more tense. The media presence never let up. Paul, now back on duty, walked around like everything was fine. He even stopped by the bar. No one knew why he had been asked to return. But he moved with purpose. It was the final stretch of a long, heavy day. And in just minutes, everything would change forever. The plan: escaping the paparazzi. At around 10:20 p.m., Dodi Fayed had a private word with the Ritz night manager, T.R. Ross. "I want to go to my apartment tonight," he told her. His voice was low, his tone serious. Only a few people were told about the change in plan. Henri Paul was one of them. Just a few minutes later, T.R. Ross was seen passing the message to Paul and another hotel worker. Henri Paul listened carefully. Then he pointed toward the chauffeur who had earlier brought Diana and Dodi to the hotel. He walked over to another driver and began speaking. That small conversation became part of a chain that would lead to the tragedy. Everyone started moving differently, one staff member said. Henri Paul wasn't like other hotel workers. He had been there for years and knew everyone. He was trusted, a co-worker shared. Paul had access that others didn't. The younger bodyguards, Trevor Rhys-Jones and Kes Wingfield, looked to him for direction. Paul gave the orders that night. Everyone followed. By 10:30 that night, Paul stepped out of the hotel. He walked across the Place Vendôme to where a group of photographers stood. He spoke with them for a while, one said later. He stayed for about 7 minutes, then returned to the Ritz at about 15 minutes to 11. He entered the bar, found one of his unfinished drinks, and drank what was left. He didn't look worried, the bartender recalled. At around 10 minutes past 11, Paul went outside again. He spoke to the driver of Dodi's Range Rover, then he turned to talk with some of the paparazzi. He looked like he had a plan, a photographer said. After a few words, he went back inside. He bent down to tie his shoelaces. Footage showed him spending 44 seconds doing it. People walked past him, unaware of what the night would bring. No one knew this would be the last time, a hotel worker later shared. After fixing his laces, Paul headed upstairs toward the Imperial Suite. A new plan was forming. Diana and Dodi could not leave through the front. There were too many cameras. "We need to fool them," someone suggested. So the idea of using decoy cars was born. It might just work, Paul said. Kes Wingfield was told to leave through the front door. His job was to draw the attention of the press. Meanwhile, Diana, Dodi, and Trevor Rhys-Jones would go out the back. Henri Paul would drive. At 23 minutes past 11, Paul came down again and stepped outside. He had a short talk with some of the paparazzi. He said very little, one of them remembered. 3 cars were lined up, Dodi's Range Rover and 2 similar black Mercedes. The goal was to confuse the photographers. "Let them chase the wrong one," Paul added. The hotel was now surrounded. Dozens waited, hoping for a glimpse of Diana. As midnight came closer, the final decision was made. Diana and Dodi would leave through the rear entrance with Paul behind the wheel. Just after midnight, the pieces began to move. One of the decoy drivers entered the hotel lobby. Paul walked past him and headed to speak with the real drivers. Upstairs, Diana and Dodi left the suite. Kes Wingfield walked with them. Diana didn't seem nervous. She even laughed at something Dodi said, a staff member recalled. She seemed ready to leave. Henri Paul had a job to do that night. As the head of security, it was up to him to make sure Diana and Dodi left safely. Someone noted. He stood near the entrance and made a small hand gesture. Just then, Diana smiled and raised her hand in a playful way. She saluted Henri, one staff member remembered. Even with pressure around her, she showed kindness. She tried to keep things light, another added. That simple wave showed the real Diana. Warm and open even in the middle of stress. To avoid being seen, they took the service elevator to the tradesman's exit at the back. Bodyguards checked the path. Downstairs, Paul gathered the drivers and went over the plan one last time. Follow the lead and don't stop, he instructed. At the back of the Ritz, Diana, Dodi, Trevor, and Paul met in the narrow corridor near the service door. They stood close together. "Are we ready?" Paul asked. They nodded. There was no turning back. Their story was about to end in the most tragic way, and the world, still watching, would never forget what happened next. The crash, how it all happened. By 19 minutes past 12, a black Mercedes pulled up at the back of the Ritz. Trevor got in the front seat. Diana and Dodi slipped into the back. Paul got behind the wheel. None of them had an idea that history was about to change. The car pulled away from the hotel. Cameras tried to catch it, but the decoy plan had worked, at least for the first few moments. Some photographers ran after the wrong cars, but it didn't take long before they realized what had really happened. "They've gone out the back!" someone shouted. Although they already had a head start, a few paparazzi noticed and chased after them. "They're getting away!" someone yelled. Motorbikes revved. Cars followed closely. The chase had begun. Henri Paul pressed the gas. The Mercedes took off into the streets of Paris. The night air filled with engine noise and camera flashes. It was meant to be a short drive. Normally, the fastest way to Dodi's apartment was through the Champs-Élysées. But that night, the roads near the Place de la Concorde were blocked. Paul made a new decision. He turned the car and followed the road along the River Seine. The car raced forward. He didn't slow down, a witness said. Instead of turning right to exit, Paul drove straight into the Alma Tunnel. The car was moving at over 60 miles per hour. That tunnel wasn't built for that speed, one expert said later. Then came the crash. The Mercedes hit the wall, bounced off, and smashed into the 13th pillar. It was sudden and brutal, said a rescue worker. Henri Paul and Dodi lost their lives instantly. Diana was alive, but badly hurt. Trevor Rees-Jones, though bleeding and broken, was still conscious. "He survived barely," said a doctor. However, some believe another car was involved. People started talking about a white Fiat Uno. Pieces of its taillight were found inside the tunnel. There was also white paint on the Mercedes, one investigator explained. These signs showed that contact had taken place.
The Fiat Uno is completely innocent at that point where they touch.
Something happened before the crash, someone said. Later, a damaged white Fiat Uno was linked to a man named James Anderson. He was a photographer with connections to royal stories, but he said he wasn't in Paris that night. His story had holes, said a French officer. Still, nothing was ever proven. The full truth remained out of reach. Inside the tunnel, things got worse fast. Photographers arrived quickly. Some took pictures. They didn't help, they just snapped photos, said a driver. The public later reacted with anger. But in France, no law stopped them from taking those photos. 7 were arrested. Their cameras were taken, and many images were never seen. They knew they had something big, a reporter said. Meanwhile, a doctor named Frédéric Maliez was driving by. He saw the crash and ran over. He tried to help her until paramedics came. They worked on her inside the wreck for many minutes before putting her in an ambulance. They tried to keep her stable, a medic explained. The hospital, Pitié-Salpêtrière, was less than 3 miles away. But the ambulance didn't rush straight there. Instead, the team followed their medical rules, working on her as they went. She was getting worse by the minute, a doctor later shared. It took an hour and 43 minutes to get Diana to the hospital. That delay may have cost her life, many would later say. At the hospital, more important figures started to arrive. The French Minister of Justice, the British ambassador. They stood in silence, waiting, a nurse recalled. Then the world heard the terrible news. Princess Diana had passed away. She didn't make it, a doctor confirmed. People around the world were heartbroken. Tears filled the streets. It felt like the world had stopped, one woman said. In Paris, London, and many other cities, crowds gathered. Flowers, candles, and handwritten notes appeared on the sidewalks. After the shock, questions followed. Investigations began. Experts looked at every piece of the crash. Why did they open the tunnel so soon, many asked. Others wanted to know more about the white Fiat Uno. Was it part of what caused the crash, a journalist asked. The investigation said there was no proof of a planned act or crime, but doubt stayed alive. People also questioned the medical response. Could Diana have lived if they moved faster, asked a British reporter. Doctors said they did their best. Still, many believed time was lost. The inquest lasted years. Every witness, every detail, every photo was examined. We tried to find the truth, said a French judge, but no final answer gave full peace. There were too many missing pieces, too many secrets. What is known is this: that night in Paris, Diana lost her life. A woman who once stood as a symbol of love, strength, and hope was gone. She was the people's princess, one man said through tears. Her demise changed the world, and her final moments will never be forgotten. What came after? The truth about the accident. The crash in the Alma tunnel had already changed everything, but the days that followed brought even more pain and confusion. Nothing felt normal anymore, one witness said. From the start, the events moved slowly and with great care. On the morning after Diana's demise, French traffic officers kept the westbound side of the tunnel closed. They didn't want to rush it, someone shared. They waited until everything had been cleaned and checked. It wasn't until 10:30 that the road opened to traffic again. People were already gathering, said a police officer on the scene. Some just stood and stared, others left flowers and notes. Everyone wanted answers, but getting those answers would take time and cause even more questions. Later, the coroner handling the inquest decided the jury needed to visit the Alma tunnel. He believed that seeing the site would help them understand what happened, but even this simple plan ran into problems. During the visit, one of the police officers lost control and fell off his motorbike. At the same time, a coach carrying jury members had issues with its wheels. The whole trip started falling apart, said one of the drivers. What was supposed to help the jury only added stress to an already tense week. It was just one problem after another, a court worker said. Then came something even more troubling. The coroner told the jury about a serious inconsistency. It involved Lord Stevens, the man who had led the first investigation into the crash called Operation Paget. Back then, Lord Stevens had asked all the big questions. Now, during the inquest, he was the one being questioned. The issue came down to something he had said to Henri Paul's parents. During a meeting in Paris in November 2006, Lord Stevens reportedly told them their son would not be blamed for driving under the influence. But when the official report was released weeks later, it said the complete opposite. The report claimed Henri Paul had been over 3 times the legal alcohol limit. This contradiction forced the jury to ask some difficult questions. Why did Lord Stevens say one thing and then allow another version to appear in the report? The coroner listed 3 possible reasons. 1, Lord Stevens didn't know what would be in the final report. That would mean he wasn't fully aware, said a member of the jury. 2, he may have lied to Henri Paul's parents to protect them. If that's true, then how can we trust him? Someone whispered. Or 3, something might have changed between the meeting and the final draft. Something doesn't add up, another juror said. Whatever the truth was, the jury had to dig into it. The coroner admitted it was an emotional matter. He believed Lord Stevens would eventually explain his reasons. Maybe he just wanted to ease their pain, one person said. But instead of making things better, his words added confusion and doubt. That wasn't the only issue on people's minds. There was another rumor, one that refused to go away. People began asking whether Diana had been pregnant at the time of the crash. Some photos taken weeks before the crash made people talk even more. The coroner told the jury that Diana had been taking contraceptive pills, which made a pregnancy unlikely. Still, nothing could be confirmed with full certainty, a doctor explained. Despite that, Lord Stevens stood firm in his belief. He said blood tests showed no signs of pregnancy. The tests were clear, he said. He also said Diana's close friends had shared that she wasn't planning a new family or even an engagement. She was moving forward, not rushing into anything, a friend told the court. But even with these facts, doubt remained. Dodi Fayed's father strongly believed that Diana was expecting a child. He never let that go, someone close to him said. His beliefs clashed with the official findings, and that made the jury's job harder. As the months passed, the jury had to deal with more claims and denials. Some came from people testifying, others came from those outside the court. Everyone had something to say, noted a journalist. Feelings ran high. People had strong opinions. It was clear that Diana's demise had left more than sadness. It had left behind mystery. "Who's telling the truth?" asked one member of the public. To many, Diana was more than just a royal. She had touched lives, helped people, and shown care where others didn't. Many people felt the inquest had taken the focus away from who Diana truly was. "She deserves peace," another said, but others believed the inquest was needed. "We must know what really happened," said a man in the crowd. They believed that without full answers, the doubt would never go away. For them, the long and costly process gave them a chance to find the truth, and that, they felt, was worth everything. As the inquest went on, more stories popped up in the media. Some were shocking, some were strange. Every day there was something new, one juror said. But many of these stories didn't help. They only made the truth harder to see. Still, the purpose of the inquest stayed the same. It was set up to find the real reason behind the crash. Every fact was to be checked. The inquest wasn't just about one night in Paris. It was about everything that led up to it, and everything that followed. In the end, they hoped to bring light into the darkest tunnel. What are your thoughts on the events leading up to the crash? Is there anything you believe might have been out of place? Let us know your views in the comments. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe to this channel. Before you go, watch the other videos on your screen.